Wrestling. Now, there's a fun sport that is much understood and it does not receive a whole lot of attention. Very, very popular around the world, starting to lag in popularity some in the United States, but still a very exciting sport. So my guess is few of you have really done much work with wrestling, so you're going to need to really study up on the basics and learn about the rules. Matches are scheduled to last 3 periods, the first period being 3 minutes, the second and third lasting 2 minutes. Athletes do go into overtime if they're tied after those 3 periods, and those overtime rules typically are going to be sudden death, so the first person to score, but not always. So you're going to need to check the rules for the match that's taking place, whether it's a duel or a tournament. Do keep in mind that wrestlers can be disqualified for a variety of reasons. Wrestling, by its very nature, can be a, shall we say, gross sport. Staph infection happens a lot because players get scraped, they get cuts, and then they're rolling around on a mat that other wrestlers have rolled around on with lots of sweat, and lots of infections take place. So you have to keep that in mind. Weight classes are critical in wrestling, and they differ between high school and college and international. So learn what those different weight classes are. And if a player doesn't meet weight, they can be disqualified. A player can be disqualified for throwing punches or for aggressive performance that's outside of the realm of wrestling. So watch for those types of things. Learn how the matches are scored. You can win by a decision, you can win by a major decision, you can win by a tech fall, you can win by a fall, and the team gets different points based on each of those things, so keep those things in mind. Also note that wrestlers cannot wrestle below their weight, but they can compete one weight class up, so you need to be aware of that. And then also remember that weigh-ins occur about an hour before the meet. A lot of the rules have changed when it comes to weigh-ins because back when I was a student, players or athletes would really purge themselves. They would run for hours on end trying to sweat out those last few pounds, and they could make themselves very, very sick as they got ready to compete. Those rules have changed for both college and high school, so learn what those rules are and how athletes can adjust, or how athletes have adjusted to their training so that they can make their weight. When you get ready to cover the event, make sure you get all the names and records for those participants, whether it is for a duel or whether it is for a tournament. Check the all-time series record against the opponents when you're talking about the teams. And then make sure you talk to the coaches before the meet. Again, as with all the other sports, you don't want the first time you meet the coach to be when you're covering an event. Get to know them. As soon as you get on that beat, go talk to the coach. Introduce yourself. Let them know what they can expect from you. Let them know what you expect from them. And honestly, if you don't know wrestling, tell them. Let them know. I was assigned to this beat. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about wrestling. How can you help me? Can we watch some video together? Can you take me through the rules? Can you educate me? Because quite frankly, coaches will really appreciate that, and right off the bat, you'll develop a good, strong rapport. So as you're watching the meet, make sure you develop a good note-taking system. You want to be able to divide out who's wrestling in what weight class. You may want to develop your own system of play-by-play. You may just want to put scoring plays down. But whatever note-taking system you develop, make sure it works for you. If you're in a tournament, watch as many of the matches as you possibly can, because that's going to give you an idea of how the team is competing, how the team is doing as you go through the match. It may be that your team just isn't doing very well, and you have one wrestler who's really standing out, so that's going to be the one you want to focus on. Look for something in each meet that's maybe the first pin of the meet, maybe the first upset of the meet. Maybe there's the biggest match coming up. You have the number 1 versus the number 2 in the country. Things like that can really set this one off. Record matches that swing the momentum for the meet or for the tournament. So you might have a team that it has lost 2 in a row, but then all of a sudden they go on to win the next 3 weight classes. That really swings some momentum and gets their team motivated and keeps them moving forward. So those are types of things to follow. Also follow the team races. Yes, wrestling is an individual sport. There's only 2 wrestlers on the mat at a time, but they are competing for their team. You're going to be tempted, especially if you're under deadline, to talk to competitors after their individual match is done, particularly if it was a big match or if it was a major upset, if it really gave the team an advantage or swung momentum their way. avoid this temptation because those wrestlers still are watching their team compete. They are still there to be a part of that team. You do not want to interrupt them between matches. Okay, so make sure you wait until the whole match is done. Do make sure you record their names and their records. Ask them to describe their individual match. If they led from wire to wire, what was their strategy going in? If they chose the down position instead of the up position, why was that? If they were, if they feigned maybe being fatigued and were able to really throw a strong move later on in the match, talk to them about that. Ask them about how they set up their opponent. Get them to give you some details. They love to talk about those types of things. But at the same time, don't get discouraged if they won't talk to you. Again, wrestling is not a very popular sport in the United States. They don't get interviewed a whole lot, and so therefore they may not be that experienced. They may be a little bit shy about it. You may have to work to build them, to dig them out of that shyness. But again, this is where building that rapport before the match can come in. You may need to go to a few practices. You may need to talk to them leading up, maybe do an advanced story on their wrestling match so they are not coming right out of the heat of battle and they get some practice. Help educate them on the pros and cons of doing an interview. And finally, it's time to write up your story. Because we're covering an event, you're likely going to use the inverted pyramid, so make sure the key information is placed high. Where was the event? When did it take place? Who were the competing teams? Which team won? And then who were the key performers for the winning team? Show your audience. Don't tell them. Show them how the match flowed. Yes, I understand you're going to have to tell them through your words, but show them where the runs came in, where the momentum shifted, where one team dominated versus the other. Find the focus for your story. Maybe it was in the upper weight classes. Maybe it was in the lower. Maybe it was a couple of competitors who were not expected to win, who really stepped up. Put the team records in parentheses within the first few paragraphs so that we know, again, which team was victorious and which team lost, and then how their record was after this event. Do include individual records for the individual competitors. And then some rules that you have to live by according to AP. You need to study up on that. All right? So, wrestling. Fun sport to cover. Very, very different, but build your skills there. Set yourself apart.